Okay, hello guys, welcome back to I'm Still Learning. In this video, sorry I'm a little flustered because I dropped the phone last take. Anyway, so I'm going to be going over why you shouldn't get ferrets. Now, as a disclaimer, I have 2 ferrets. These are my first ferrets. They were impulse purchases. I will not deny that. I've always wanted a ferret. And then finally I got kicked out of my house about like 2 years ago, and I was just like, I have money, I want to get a ferret. And my roommates were like, yeah, sure. Since then I've moved back to the house that I was previously kicked out of, but we're all good now, and I got my 2 ferrets sleeping right behind me. I love them to death. They're well behaved. I got everything under control, specifically that I'll be talking about in this video. You guys are probably like, well, if you love your ferret so much, why are you trying to convince me to not get a ferret, right? What are you on about here, you know? And to that I say, I assume that this is going to be the first video people see, considering it's the first video I've made, and I wanted to kind of let people know what they would be getting into, what they're going to be getting into, what they got to look out for, first, before I go over why you should get a ferret. Because I would much rather scare people away from buying ferrets than to have people see, you know, me glorifying them and be like, I want a ferret, I'm gonna get a ferret, and then not know what they're getting into or be able to take care of them. So, without further ado, let me tell you why you should not get a ferret. So, first of all, it's the price, right? When I wanted to get a ferret, I figured that these guys would be like getting a hamster, you know, they're just a rodent, right? Turns out ferrets are not just rodents, they're not just cage animals. They require a lot of care, extensive care, time, love, and money. I went to the pet store to go get a ferret, and I found out that you had to get more than one ferret. Because they are pack animals, they can't be just alone, and I kind of figured that would be the case. But when I looked at the price, they were on sale for $400 each, right? Echo and Dynamite are my expensive little guys, and that's just purchasing them. The cage was another $400. Ferret food, you can't use Marshall ferret food because we all hate Marshalls in the ferret community, and the ingredients are not ideal. So when you're buying food for ferrets, you have to keep in mind that they are obligate carnivores, which means they cannot have any sort of plant material in their everyday food. So you know how capitalism works. The only way to get meat exclusive foods is to shop organically, usually, is what you want. So you'd want to find organic, usually cat food, raw food, and that stuff will rocket your bank account. I use Instinct chicken kibble for kittens, because ferrets are basically small cats. Some ferret owners may disagree with giving cat food, but a lot of them usually just feed cat kibble. It is organic, freeze-dried chicken. There is no starches, there's no additives, it's just chicken kibble. And as a treat, I give pure salmon oil and freeze-dried chicken kibble toppers. And that stuff's expensive, right? In the US here, it's like $20 for a bag of food. I think more for mine, I think it's like 30 something for mine. And yeah. So the price is a lot. Also, ferrets get bored easily. You gotta keep getting them toys. They'll destroy their toys. You gotta get them new toys. They wreck a lot of stuff. And you might have to replace your personal belongings, which adds a lot of money. You might have to replace their toys, which is a lot of money. So ferrets are just, in general, very expensive. So if you don't have a steady income, don't get a ferret. Okay. Second reason you shouldn't get a ferret is time. Ferrets, I learned, they need 6 to 10 hours of active playtime a day. So what I thought, because I used this argument to convince my roommates to get them, is that ferrets are cage animals. They belong in a cage. They, you can take them out if you want to play with them, but they don't need it. Boy, was I wrong, right? Ferrets are the most active animal you could have. So back when I got the ferrets, I had all this time, and I was like, okay, it's a bit of a downside, but I'll still take it. They can be litter trained, they can, be trained like cats and dogs. I'm like, this should be easy, right? Whew, no, it's not easy. Not easy at all. They take a lot of patience, a lot of care, and a lot of work. And for me, I work a third shift factory job. Keeping up with the ferrets is very difficult. You need a lot of patience. You need to sleep. You need to be a hard sleeper too if you want to have them out that much time. But yeah, also things like training them, it takes a lot of time to like potty train them, to bite train them, and stuff like that. Also, I forgot to mention about the price thing. Yearly vet bills are also really expensive because ferrets are apparently considered exotic animals. I did not know this. So you have to go to a really high-end vet to get them any sort of proper care. So just be wary of that. Make sure you find a good vet. I didn't have any sort of vet. I thought I would just take them to the local vet and it'd be fine. No, you gotta find like a exotic pet vet. So, and that's a lot of money. Ferrets are definitely something I would recommend getting pet insurance for, which I don't have, but I can definitely afford vet bills, emergency vet bills if I need to. Anyway, back to time. So you want at least, I usually say at least 30 minutes to an hour of active play, which means you're playing with them, you're training them, you're hands-on with the ferrets, and the rest they can kind of just go out and explore stuff. And yeah, so ferrets need a lot of time. If you're mentally ill, don't get a ferret. I always tell people this. I'm like, if you can't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of a ferret. I've had a few mental health, weeks, months, whatever, and I felt like I wasn't able to take care of the ferrets because, again, they need 6 to 10 hours outside of their cage. They need playtime. They need stimulation. They get bored real easily. And if you can't give them that, then they won't be very happy. And if their ferrets aren't happy, they can get sick. So gotta be careful with that. I've been much more on top of keeping their playtime to 6 hours. So we're good. I know after I just started my third shift job, it was really difficult to adapt. But they're happy. They're snoozing away. So that's how I know they got enough playtime. Another reason you shouldn't get ferrets, the smell. So I remember everyone would be like, oh, don't get a ferret, they smell, or ew, ferrets, they smell, or every time I talk about a ferret, everyone's like, they smell. Okay, yeah, right. If you're sensitive to things like smell, or if you're a sensory, a sensitive, person, don't get a ferret. There are a lot of ways to keep the smell down, but it usually takes a lot of, trial and error and experience to get to that point. It makes your air stuffy. It takes a while to go nose blind too, and you gotta be on top of the litter box if you want it to not smell. I always tell people, I'm like, I have ferrets, they have a smell. I don't think it's a bad smell. For instance, you can tell, usually, if you walk into someone's house that they own a cat or a dog, or a guinea pig, or a hamster, because each animal has, an animalistic smell. That's what I usually explain people, with ferrets. I'm like, ferrets have a very musky, smell. It'll smell like there's an animal in my room, because there is. But, a lot of people are very closed-minded. They're like, yeah, they smell, they're so gross and disgusting and dirty, and your room is disgusting and dirty, and so the reason I got the ferrets, this was another argument, was that someone told me that if they don't have their scent glands, they don't smell. And I'm like, well, Marshall ferrets don't have scent glands because they do the surgery. They're not going to smell. I was wrong. Ferret Ferret waste especially smells really bad, and I want people to keep that in mind, but I also don't want people to like take it as a deal breaker, because it is very possible to negate the smell with air purifiers, things like rice, deodorizing like detergents. Make sure they're scentless though. What else? I do use pine wood for the litter, which completely absorbs the smell, but there will always be that like musky, like dank, like air. So if you're sensitive, then don't get a ferret. Also, this kind of like is a segue onto the next one. The next one is care. If you are sensitive to like poop or like animal waste, don't get a ferret. They poop a lot and they pee a lot, and it smells horrendous. If anyone has a lizard, you know what lizard poop smells like. I would say it's a tier below that, right? Lizard poop is the worst. I will not deny that. But ferrets, they're also very hard to potty train fully. Ferrets don't like... You can potty train a ferret, but sometimes, you know, you'll get that mischievous ferret that's like, oh, well, what's stopping me from using this corner, you know? Other than maybe a treat, if your ferrets aren't food motivated. And once one of them starts pooping out of the litter box, the other one will follow. You kind of have to keep retraining them. I haven't had any accidents in 2 months, I say, hopefully. And usually any accidents are few and far between. They only stay in my room, so there's not a lot of places they can have accidents anyway. But you will have to clean up a lot of poop. You will have to deal with a lot of waste, especially with baby ferrets, weaning them onto an organic diet. They'll have a lot of accidents. They don't take negative reinforcement, so you have to really be patient with them, with giving them food when they use the litter box, and grabbing them and moving them. There's a lot of cleanup. There's a lot of stink. You know, you gotta be able to be hands-on with animal waste. And that's something I definitely was not ready for, but I adapted to. So, ferret care. Caring for a ferret is way harder than your average caged animal. I don't want to say it's harder than like a dog or a cat. I'd say it's like kind of equal to that. But it's definitely a different kind of care than to a dog or a cat. Like with ferrets, you got to, you know, give them a lot of playtime. You got to give them a lot of stimulation. You got to show them new things. You got to, you know, take them out of their cage. You got to ferret-proof your room. Those things are like having a toddler, right? If they can reach it, they can wreck it, okay? So you got to make sure wires are out of the way if your ferrets chew wires. If you're like a gamer like me, make sure that your computer mouse isn't easily knocked over, your speakers can't get scratched up, your computer can't get like unplugged, because my ferrets will accidentally unplug my TV and stuff, or like turn off the, what is it, the switch thing. I don't have a problem with wire chewing ferrets. Hello? Something just fell over under my desk. That was spooky. But yeah, I don't have any wire chewing ferrets, so I'm so thankful. They only chew like blocky toys, like rubber and stuff, so I'm good with having wires all over the place, as long as they're not left in here to get bored. Once ferrets get bored, they'll do whatever it takes to destroy something. You gotta keep in mind your ferret cycles, like their seasonal cycles. When will they molt their fur, grow their fur, make sure they're brushed so they don't get any hairballs. You gotta know their circadian rhythm, their bathroom rhythm if you want to train them to use the bathroom, their feeding rhythm, stuff like that. It's not mandatory, but it's better for your ferret's health if you know when they eat, when they sleep, to be able to like give them the darkness to be able to keep themselves healthy. So it takes a lot of really watching your ferret. These are very hands-on animals. They're not the kinds that you could just keep in a cage and have around, you know. My ferrets are my kids. Like that's what I say, because they're very, I don't want to make any moms mad out there, but I'd say they're pretty similar to toddlers. So yeah, if you have enough money, you can care for these animals, you have the time to take care of these animals, they're definitely good. They're very kid friendly, they're very cute, they're very fun. If you like actively playing with pets, you want a pet you can actively play with, pick up, throw around, bond with, ferrets are good for that. Let's see. Patience. Yeah, if you're not a patient person, don't get a ferret. If you think you're a patient person, go ahead. Get a ferret. Go on, get a ferret. They'll test that, right? They could be completely potty trained for a whole year and all of a sudden they're pooping everywhere because one of them realized that there's a better, more convenient corner to poop in. And now they're like, oh, well, mom doesn't seem to care too much that I'm pooping in this corner. So now you have to retrain them. If you don't train them often, you'll have to retrain them. You'll think your room is completely ferret proof. A couple months later, they'll get bored of it and find something else to eat, scratch, or chew on. They develop new habits. It's basically, if you've ever played the game, what's it called? I don't remember what it's called. It's the one where you're the baby that's trying to, you're trying to kill yourself and the dad's trying to stop you. That's what ferrets are. They're always trying to kill themselves. You always gotta stop them from doing it. So I've had my remote buttons chewed off. I've had game controller joysticks chewed off. I've had Dynamite climb up the cage and try and jump off and almost hurt himself. I've had carpets getting scratched up. So if you're in an apartment that has a security deposit, I would suggest not getting a ferret because they will scratch at doors. They will ruin things, they'll mess things up, they'll poop everywhere. Don't get a ferret if you have an apartment. It's not worth it. So you gotta keep your patience. I know there's a lot of times that you might want to throw your ferret against the wall. There's one specific instance where I moved my ferrets into my room because they used to have a ferret room, and I didn't really like the process of the ferret room or how it was. I wanted my ferrets to be around me, So I brought them in my room, and Dynamite wasn't really, trained in my room. He kind of did his own thing in the ferret room. He would scratch the edge of the cage all night long. I could probably put the video in here if I could find it, but I have never been so mad because I work a third shift job and I needed to go to work. So I wasn't too happy about that. But, I saw them napping all snuggled up a little while later, and I couldn't stay mad at them. So even me, the most patient person ever, if you know me, I've almost lost it to these things, I swear. They'll steal your shoes. It's crazy. Mental health. If you're depressed, if you're you don't focus very easily, you're very forgetful, stuff like that, don't get a ferret. These guys require your utmost attention, utmost care, and your best self. Don't go into the whole ferrets need a lot of responsibility, so if I get a ferret, maybe I'll get out of the rut, I'll have to force myself. Don't do that. It's a trap, okay? I know some people think like that. Knowing you have a responsibility to care for and knowing you're unable to do it, don't get a ferret. Okay, because I know a lot of people try and give themselves responsibilities to get out of their rut and end up neglecting them. Ferrets, they're animals, they're living things, and if you don't do your research, you could end up doing a lot of harm to them in the long run. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get my ferrets the life they deserve, even though they're getting older. I think they're about 2 years old, and they're not allowed to leave my room because my grandma has a cat. Again, I didn't used to live here when I got the ferrets. So another PSA, if you're not in a secure living situation, I would not suggest getting any pet, let alone a ferret. Because I was like, oh, I finally am out of the house, let me, splurge on this pet. And then it didn't work out, and I moved back here, and now they can only stay in my room, which isn't bad, but I'd prefer more than that for them. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more I can go over, but I know a lot of my friends are like, I want a ferret, and I'm like, no, I don't think you could do a ferret. No offense, but they're harder than they look. You get a lot of, it's a lot of vet bills, it's a lot of responsibility, it's a lot of upkeep to keep the smell down, to keep the destruction down. And though they're quiet vocally, they're definitely not quiet physically. If you sleep lightly and can't handle noise while you sleep, don't get a ferret. Yeah, that's about all I can do right now. I mean, I could probably do a more extensive video on this if it gets any traction. But this is an uncut vlog video of me telling all my friends why they should not get a ferret. The next video, I will probably go over why you should get a ferret. And another video I want to do is things I've learned since having a ferret, about ferrets, and how to take care of them. So, thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys in the next video. Toodles!